generations. And now, the power of two restores the one.
We got a bidet. Hey everybody, and welcome back to another video. This is now that time of the month, I should say, of Shoot the Sheev. So this is where we come together and talk about the different news stories that happen throughout the month of June that we think are worthwhile or interesting. And then, of course, if we didn't cover something, you can drop it in the comments and share it with everybody. So I want to kick off today's news with something I think is incredibly exciting. And what that is that there was a new villainous expansion shown. Of course, we were told about the announcement probably a couple of months ago, but we weren't told who those characters were going to be. And now we finally know. We got Thrawn and we got Count Dooku. So, of those two, who are you more excited to use?
Oh, Thrawn hands down.
Thrawn?
He's blue. Hello. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't a big fan of him in, what was it, Ahsoka was where we saw him in live action.
Yes.
So I
We
wasn't the biggest
also,
fan of him then. But with the animated series we watched, what was it? Was it Clone? Nope,
Rebels.
it was Rebels. I always mix those two up. I don't think I've seen Clone Wars yet, have I?
You have not.
Okay. But in Rebels, he was pretty cool. So
Yeah.
I like him.
I'm excited to see him too in the game. Honestly, we played the most recent expansion lately, the one with Darth Maul and Phasma, and I thought it was an okay expansion. So I'm looking forward to this one. Just kind of seeing how the characters play out. Of course, Thrawn is very much a strategic type person, so I could definitely see some of that stuff happening. Dooku, I mean, he was a commander of the Separatist army. He also, took out Jedi when he needed to. So I don't quite know what's going on with his character yet, but my guess is I mean, he's a prequel trilogy character, right? But will it be something from the movies, like live action, or will it be something centered around his Clone Wars character? Not quite sure yet, but we'll find out.
Which one are you most looking forward to?
Probably Thrawn as well. I mean, Count Dooku is great, don't get me wrong. It's not like the last expansion where I was like, yay, Darth Maul. Ooh, Phasma. Both of them are great choices in my opinion. I'm just I don't know how much more I could be excited about Dooku, not really knowing how he's gonna work. Like what's gonna separate him from Grievous, for example, because Grievous is all about just slaughtering Jedi. Well, Dooku was taking out Jedi as well. So, is there some sort of component where Dooku is trying to, you know, convince a Jedi to join him to take out the Emperor? Maybe, but at the same time, would that be too much like the Darth Maul expansion where you're just trying to degrade Jedi basically and then use that Jedi to take out another one? I don't know. If it makes me wonder how unique his character is going to be.
Well, we've seen other ones before where it's not so story involved and it's more just you need to find a certain character and defeat them. Like, isn't it with Vader, you just have to find Luke and defeat him or something? Like, it's a lot more simple.
No, Vader's is still very much like the films. His goal was to find Luke, to turn Luke to the dark side, and then overthrow the Emperor.
Hmm.
Because that's what Vader wanted in Empire Strikes Back, was to rule the galaxy as father and son.
I gotcha. I will say too, I know you were saying like you weren't super looking forward to Phasma, but as we played that one, I felt like her character was pretty well thought out. It was heavily involved in raising troops and uh recruiting and promoting and generating an army essentially. So I thought it was pretty cool.
Yeah, when we played, Sarah played as Phasma and I played as Darth Maul, and uh, you know, just a quick little overview for Darth Maul's side of things. Uh, it was semi difficult to get his main plan in motion. Like one of the components or mechanics of the game is called Fate, in which is when you try to send in, the good guys to disrupt your opponents. And Darth Maul's character, his board relied on that. But at the same time, there was like one or two cards that you yourself as Darth Maul could, try to provoke the good guys to come out. And what Sarah and I basically figured out is if the opponent doesn't really try to mess with, Darth Maul's board in terms of sending heroes into it, well, then it can be very, very difficult to even get the first half of what he needs to get in motion. So it can be difficult. So it just makes me wonder, like when we get to these new ones, uh, what kind of mechanics will they have? Um, just a small plug-in as well, because that was the Star Wars villainous that we heard about. There's another villainous coming out as well for the Disney side of things, and it will be um, Davy Jones from Pirates of the Caribbean, and was it the crab from Moana?
I think he's a crab. His name's Tamatoa.
Yeah, I think those are the two characters coming out for the Disney one. Some more exciting board game news. We have talked about in the past that there is this board game based off The Mandalorian where it's got kind of like a spiral bound notebook and you go through the different levels and whatnot. We did talk about in the past that there was a second one announced. It was called The Mandalorian Adventures Clan of Two Expansion. And as you could probably tell if you've ever looked at the original game, this is basically, dipping into season two of Mandalorian. And what's new, they just basically had some closer looks at the game itself, some of the components, seeing some of the maps. Uh, let's see, just from the picture that I can see two of the new characters are going to be Boba Fett and Fennec Shan. But you will get a brand new book, so it is going to have, brand new levels to play with. Another mode within the original game that's going to carry over here is skirmishes. So, if you want to do the story, great. If not, then you can just kind of do these little skirmish battles where you're just going up against enemies. Um, but I am looking forward to this expansion as well. The first game was great. I'm pretty sure we finished the first game, like the story mode. We just didn't do any of the skirmish missions because there's a mechanic in the original, the first one, where there's ways to make it harder by having like spies or people that can betray you, and we didn't mess with that mechanic yet, so that's kind of like the one thing we could go back to and check out that's brand new. Otherwise, your replayability is just replaying scenarios, or again, during those you're doing those skirmish missions. What was your thoughts on the original game?
I thought it was fun. I remember parts of it being like almost too easy and parts of it being almost too hard. So it's nice that there's some variation to it. You don't want it all to be too easy, but you don't want it to all be too difficult either. Uh, I feel like there was a time or two. It's been a while since we played. I feel like there was a time or two where we almost didn't make it, and it was kind of like, what are we gonna do?" Um, but I'm looking forward to the next one. I think they did a good job with it, and although we're not super into maybe the replayability or the skirmish part of it, just because there's only so much time in the day for us, and so many different things to cover. I think it's really nice that they incorporate that so it's not just kind of a one and done thing.
Yeah, I would agree with that. Uh, just trying to look up the release date, I found out that this is already out. It's out there. You can purchase it right now. The a third character that I didn't know was available would be Ahsoka Tano,
Hmm.
that will be playable as well. But yeah, the game is $39.99 for the expansion. The base game is $50. This expansion is $40. And like I said, supposedly it's out already. So if
I am happy to hear that the price came down because even with a new book and it kind of almost being like a second game, I felt like $50 was maybe a little steep for what it was. And so it's nice that there's something, a little bit of a price drop in there. There's a lot of uh I feel like this game is very involved from an intellectual standpoint, but not from a like not a ton of miniatures, for example. Like there's a lot of cards and a lot of paperwork and a lot of thought and brain work that went into making this game that would kind of justify maybe a higher price. But at the same time, when you're paying that high of a price, $50 for a board game, you kind of expect to have like more miniatures or, even if it's just like cardboard miniatures, like just, I don't know, more than just cardboard discs, I guess.
yeah, I mean, I feel like there was some characters, but maybe I'm remembering a different game. But yeah, the majority of it was cardboard. You're right. And for like you said, for $50, it's kind of steep.
There may have been some, I just remember thinking it was, I don't want to say cheap because it's not like the game was made cheap. It just wasn't made super high quality either. And, um, when you think about like Villainous and stuff, how those have such nice high quality little miniatures, I don't know. I'm happy to see the price come down.
Same. And I think, and I could be wrong, I think what kind of makes the price come down a little bit is I think that there's not as many scenarios in the book, is my guess. There might be like one or two less. Maybe there's not as many characters to choose from in the second season because I mean we already got Boba, right? Or not Boba, we already got Mando. We already have um what's her face? I'm blanking on the name. Cara Dune. We already have Cara Dune. Like there's so many characters in the first game that would carry over to the second game where it wouldn't make sense just to have a new character. So you know, the expansion of characters would make sense to be a little bit smaller for the second season, uh, going along with the price drop. So
Yeah, 'cause
definitely adding that to my wish list.
they're relying on you to have the first game for some of these pieces and characters.
Right. All right. Well, let's talk about some movie news.
All
Uh,
right.
I got two of them that kind of were shocking to me. One of them was a misunderstanding by fans, and that was that Mark Hamill had said that he is quitting Star Wars. He is done with the Luke Skywalker character, and what's done is done. And the internet took that the wrong way. The internet thought that he was legitimately quitting Star Wars and wanting nothing to do with it. And really, what he was saying is that, Luke's character, like his arc, has been wrapped up. Disney is in the process of having brand new characters so they can tell brand new stories without having to rely on what has happened in the past all the time. And so. I think this was just something that was kind of blown out of proportion a little bit too much. But I can definitely see the concern if that's, like if Mark Hamill had come out and been like, yo, I quit. I want nothing to do with Disney because it makes you wonder, what did Disney do this time? If that were the case.
I'm just trying to look up. There was a funny quote I saw from him, and I just want to make sure that I'm saying it right because I don't want to paraphrase unless I have to, but uh okay, this was the quote. He says, And by the way, when I disappeared in The Last Jedi, I left my robes behind, and there's no way I'm gonna appear as a naked Force ghost. So I thought that was kind of just a fun play on like, what do you want me to do? I left my robe behind. You saw in the movie that I left it and it's gone. Like,
Yeah. I've seen a lot of interesting buzz going around with original trilogy characters in general. Um, how there was how it was really odd that Disney wanted to pick them off one by one in the sequel trilogy, but yet the heart of the original trilogy is our main trio, and we never got the opportunity to see all three of them all together in the sequels. There were just so many missed opportunities that it just, kind of played more and more into the hand of Disney mishandling Star Wars, and hopefully some of that stuff is going to turn around. The other piece of information of news, and this one's got my attention, and I think it's going to have yours quite a bit too. There is an actress that is known for a specific film series that is joining the Starfighter movie. I'll give you a hint. So this actress plays in a trilogy that includes Jenna Ortega. It is a trilogy about, it has two things going on with it. The first half of this trilogy, meaning part one and half of the second movie, has to do with a character that is um, wanting to become a star. And then the second half of this trilogy involves a character where she goes to become a star, things go haywire, all of her friends die, and then she pursues her career in Hollywood in the third film.
is it the Southern girl from Pearl and X?
It is
And I can't remember what the third one was. Third movie.
Pearl X and Maxine.
Yes.
So those movies are very, very different from Star Wars, I will tell you. But yeah, Mia Goth supposedly is in either in talks or is already signed to be a part of Starfighter, the new Ryan Gosling film. Um, Thinking about the kind of character that Mia Goth has played, in my opinion, I want to see her be the villain. I want her to be a strong female villain in this Starfighter film. I don't want her to be a hero.
That would definitely be interesting. Do we know anything about what this movie's about?
We know it's kind of like a Rogue Squadron type movie where it's centered around, those that fly in the Armada for the Rebel or Resistance, I should say, because it's in the sequel trilogy. And Ryan Gosling is set to star in it. And that's basically all we know.
And do we have any idea of what year this is supposed to come out?
When it's supposed to, not next, I don't think it's next. I want to say 27 or 28.
Okay.
Somewhere in there is my guess.
It'll be very interesting. I would be super surprised if she played a villain. She just doesn't strike me as somebody who would play that. I feel like she's almost kind of an equivalent of, and I'm blanking on her name, Carrie Fisher's daughter, who was also in the sequel trilogy at one point.
Yep.
Billy Lord, right?
I'm trying to remember her name too.
I think it's Billy Lord.
Yes. Yep. I was like, I know it's a unique name. Which one is it?
I feel like they've both played similar characters, thinking back to when she was in, what was it, American Horror Story?
Yep.
When she played a character from like the 70s, 80s, whatever decade that was. Um,
80s. I think it was 1984.
oh yeah, I think you're right. So I mean they've both played similar, hippie style characters from that decade, very groovy type characters, and I mean, Billy Lord was she didn't have a very big role in Star Wars, but I almost kind of wonder if Mia Goth would have maybe a similar-ish type role of just somebody helping out, I guess.
So you think Mia Goth is gonna have kind of like a supporting role? She won't be a lead.
I don't see her being a lead in this film. I would be surprised.
I will play devil's advocate a little bit on this one. And the reason why I say that is because Star Wars has never been a space where they bring in established, like really established talent. They usually bring in people that are beginning slash middle of the road in their careers. And I think that's why she would fit even into a lead role. Yet the Ryan Gosling being cast for Star Wars, I think is a very outlier situation. Like when I heard that, I was like, "Are you kidding? This isn't what Star Wars normally does." So, it's going to be very different seeing that. So,
I just hope with both of them that it's not a oh my goodness, I am really struggling with names today. I hope that it's not a Jack Black and Lizzo type situation. When they were in what show was that? Was that
Mando.
that was Mandalorian? That was such a weird episode. They did not fit in the Star Wars universe. I know they tried, but it's so hard to see people that, like to your point, that you're used to seeing in all these other things and that you recognize as being TV stars when Star Wars is supposed to be such a removed universe that they're kind of supposed to be unique on their own. So I think it's going to be kind of strange seeing, as much as I love Ryan Gosling, I think it's going to be really weird seeing him in Star Wars. Same with Mia Goth.
I say I don't watch much of Ryan Gosling stuff. I know I saw Barbie, but I haven't seen like legitimately sat down and watched, was it Fall Guy that he was in?
Fall Guy, I saw, pretty sure he's the one who stars in Lars and the Real Girl, which was a movie I had to watch in film class. It's a very strange, different kind of movie, one of his older ones. Um, The Notebook, is it a
Yeah.
class? That's a classic.
Haven't seen many of those. So, to a degree, it'll be kind of like for me, seeing like a actor I don't see very often in film, but I do know he's an established, very well-known actor, so it'll be a little different in that sense. But I am excited to see what kind of character that Mia Goth ends up playing in Star Wars. I think it's going to be really cool. All right, so video game type stuff. As we all know, last month, the month of May, it kicked off a lot of Star Wars event type stuff in video games. In the month of June, Fortnite continued its Star Wars event, which basically led up to this epic battle against the Emperor. I was seeing different videos of how this all went down, and I thought it was pretty darn cool. Unfortunately, not enough to get me back into it. I just don't have the time to play it. But I will say, and also based on what I've seen from people that did play it, is that it sounds like Fortnite hit a home run with this whole Star Wars event. And so hopefully they keep things going. And what I'm hoping we get out of this is I'm hoping that this is some sort of proof of concept that Epic can make a good Star Wars gaming experience. And maybe they'll make their own Star Wars game. That's kind of my hope, is that that's what this leads to. Did you hear anything about the Fortnite event, whether it's excitement or see any of the promotions?
I haven't really heard anything as of late. I think I heard maybe some like advertisements before it came out. But there's so many different games that have been doing Star Wars type events for like Star Wars Day and really even just this season. I know Monopoly Go still has one going until I want to say July 5th. They've got their Star Wars event still going. I might not have the date exactly correct, but somewhere around the first week of July, which I know is coming up like pretty much next week. Um, so I I've seen more advertisements for that one, honestly, than for Fortnite. But I think that might just be that I'm kind of removed from the Fortnite world a bit.
That's fair. Um, I actually didn't see much about Monopoly Go. I would see things every now and then about like collecting certain tokens for the game, but aside from that, I didn't see a whole lot. We're not very big into mobile games, and well, to a degree, like I hardly play any of them. Usually, if I do, I play for like 2 or 3 weeks and then I'm done just because I can't keep up with things. I know Sarah plays a handful of them, but this is not one of them that you play, right?
No, and I don't really play online mobile games. Most of the mobile games that I play are just like brain
Puzzle.
teaser type games to kill time in waiting rooms.
Yeah. If anything, I think that's probably where I would be at too. Speaking of mobile games, we also had events in Galaxy of Heroes. Again, it's a thing where I would see advertisements and I would think that it looks so cool. Maybe I should jump back in, but then the reality side of my brain is like, well, you know what's going to happen. You're going to play for a little bit and then you're not going to play again. So um, I actually did not dive back into Galaxy of Heroes, but in the month of June, they had different Omega events, assault battles, mythic events, and fleet slash territory wars. Um, Basically, that's all the different. They're all different types of modes that are in the game. What was interesting to me from what I saw from promos is that there was a lot of movies and show based content that was now playable in that game. So if you've never played the game before, really what it is, aside from this event type stuff, it's a turn-based game. It's kind of like, Pokemon or Final Fantasy, where you'll have anywhere from I think 3 to 6 characters of your own going up against waves of enemies. And for the most part, you're just kind of doing skirmishes that have really no connection to events in the films. They're just you're playing the game. However, when they have these events, they start making connections to some of the films. So I think there was a segment in the month of June where you were Anakin storming the Jedi temple, and slaughtering Jedi and stuff. I think there was also one about Mustafar, the battle between Vader and Obi-Wan. So, um, of course, heavier on the Revenge of the Sith content because they just had the anniversary. But I didn't get back into it. I've seen a lot of advertisements that have made me want to maybe jump back in, but I just can't get myself to do it, Sarah. I don't have enough time in the world.
Oh, and we don't want a repeat of Fortnite where we spend a bunch of money getting all these not a bunch of money, some money, getting all these cool skins because, we're so
Mm.
excited. And then 2 months later, you stop playing, and it's like, what did I spend all that money for?
I would argue that I spent a decent amount of money. I spent enough money where it would be as if I had bought a game itself. We poured how many hours into that game? They
We
deserve a buck or two.
we did play it a lot in our heyday of Fortnite.
Yeah. Um, One of the video game news stories that I thought was kind of weird, just because I've heard of this game, but because of the platform that it's on, I never have the opportunity to play. Lego Star Wars Castaways. Have you heard of this game, Sarah?
No.
Probably the reason why you haven't is because it's on Apple Arcade.
Oh my gosh, of course.
And I don't really know what this game is. But what I can tell you is that they had an event as well, and it's going on right now. You actually have a couple days left to do what you need to do to get some collectibles. They have an Attack of the Clones event going on this month, where you can get themed collectibles around Attack of the Clones. When I initially saw the advertisement of Attack of the Clones event, exclusive characters and stuff, I had thought this was new content for Lego Star Wars: The Skywalker Saga, And so I was like, "Oh, you have my attention." And then I saw Castaways. And I'm like, "What is this?" And then I saw Apple Arcade, and I was like, "Oh, that's why I don't know what this is." So,
Yeah, we are not Apple people.
no. I mean, to be fair, we have both had Apple products in the past. I've had some I loved, I've had some I hated, and ultimately, whenever I see my friends and family have them, there's a lot of talk about, things that break. And so we've been Team Pixel and Team Windows quite a while, and things are going good. So they just need to start getting exclusive games like Apple Arcade. But I don't know if that's going to happen. The last piece of information for video games, and this one is exciting, but I don't know if it's going to lead to anything, and that's that the Battlefront 2 resurgence continues. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, because we did talk about this in the past, is that EA's Battlefront 2 has had a huge influx in players. I think it was even on sale recently, and people were buying it again, those that have never had it before. But basically, the community wants Battlefront 3. I want Battlefront 3. I sunk so many hours into Battlefront 2 because I unlocked everything without paying any money. Because, I mean, you could pay money to get cosmetics and whatnot, but you can also earn them just by playing the game. And the game is a lot of fun. There's a lot of cool things that are in that game. And I think EA just doesn't realize the awesome game that they created. I have no idea why this game has been on the back burner for EA for so long. It's like, yo, what are you doing? Like people want this third game, come out with it. And my guess is that EA does not want to make a multiplayer game that does not have some sort of paid live service component to it. And if you aren't aware, what happened when this game originally came out is that it was released as a multiplayer live service game, and there was microtransactions all over the place that were connected to whether you could be better than other people, like you could pay for upgrades. And even at that, when you bought the upgrades, they were randomized, and it was very, very hard to get anything that was actually worthwhile for your money. I remember Angry Joe did a thing. I think he did like a 50 or $100 um, simulation where he bought that much, opened up all the packs, and then he didn't get crap for what he put money into it. So there was a really, really bad launch for Battlefront 2. And then, even though they fixed everything and they continued to support the game for a handful of more seasons, that were free of charge, eventually they did stop their making of content for the game. They stopped supporting it. And now with this influx of players showing, hey, we want this to come back, it's like, could we get something for Battlefront 2? And I don't remember if we talked about this last month or not, but I do remember seeing that there was some people from EA saying, well, if we were to do anything, we'd need development time, which they they think they could get a game out maybe by 2028 or 29, and maybe they could do some sort of like remastered version of Battlefront 2 for the next PlayStation console before then, which I don't know if that's a hint or not that there's a new one coming out before then, but that's what they said. And if that's what it takes, fine, but I think it's a long ways away. That is a long ways away.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting you to say 28 or 29, but at the same time, they've got some serious work to do they don't want a repeat of their past failure, but something tells me that they can't make a brand new game at the price that everybody wants to pay that doesn't have just tons of microtransactions in it. The video game industry is getting to be so expensive these days that I feel like they're gonna have to do, as you said, they're gonna have to do some serious development to find a balance point so that it's mixed between, so it's not pay to win, but so that there's some way for them to recoup some other funds.
Yeah, unfortunately, that's the EA way. I mean, of course, EA has been doing the Jedi series, like Fallen Order and Survivor, and those are purely single player based. There's some microtransactions if you want like cosmetics and stuff, but there's no like pay to win type component to it, of course, because it's just single player. Um, but if they were to make some sort of big multiplayer game, I think you're right. I think there's going to be some sort of paid mechanic behind it. I think if it's just cosmetics, I would be totally fine with it. But if it's connected to upgrades, that's where I think the line should be drawn. Um, but
I feel like Fortnite has such a good handle on that stuff already. I don't know why people don't just copy that model. And maybe Call of Duty is or isn't that way first. I don't know who originated it. I haven't played Call of Duty since like PS3. So it's been a very long time. I'm very out of touch with it. But my point is, other people have done, where there's microtransactions that are not pay to win, and they're just skins or cosmetics or, other fun emotes or just things that aren't pay to win, but that still generate money, that people still want to put money in.
yeah, and the thing that I really liked about Fortnite, and granted, I can't speak for if this is how it still works because we haven't played in a while, but one of the things that I really liked about the way that Fortnite did it is that yes, you would pay $10 or $15 for the first battle pass, but if you completed that battle pass, then you had, enough currency to purchase the next one. Plus, you'd be able to save a couple. Like, let's say you earn 1,000 V-Bucks, it takes 800 to do the next battle pass, and then you have 200 that you can save for future emotes or skins or whatever you're trying to do. I feel like that's way more consumer friendly than some of the others because I know when I played Star Wars Hunters, which rest in peace, that game is on its way out. You had to pay for that every time. There wasn't an earn the next season, and maybe that's part of the reason why it went under. I don't know. But I
Yeah,
also think the crazy menus is something that turned people off.
I was gonna say Fortnite also had skins that you could just straight up pay for that weren't part of that battle pass or season pass system outside of that too.
Yeah. And honestly, I do think that that model would work well within Star Wars because FOMO, right? Fear of missing out. If you are playing Battlefront and you see all these different skins and you're like, "Oh my God, I gotta have that one." And it's time based, that would definitely bring in some money. Uh, of course, it depends on the character, it depends on the skin that they create, but I can't imagine, you know, it wouldn't be worth it. So,
Just
I
gotta
don't
be
know.
careful because you want enough skins that people want to use that are included in the base game. You don't want to have it so that you get like two character choices and they're both generic soldiers or troopers.
Yeah, there are a lot of generic ones. I even remember from Battlefront 2, where it's just a different paint job, but similar style. But you also got ridiculous skins like Han Solo with facial hair. Like that one is still kind of nightmare material in a way. So, um, I guess you just kind of see what you get and then hope things like one of them that I remember that was cool and I could definitely see it being a paid one is Count Dooku in his pajamas. That was in Battlefront 2. Why was it in Battlefront 2? Because that was in the Clone Wars. Like it's an actual thing. So, when you see things like that and you're like, "Oh my God, that's amazing. I want it." People will pay for it. Or like let's say we have Luke Skywalker in the game, right? Clearly going to be in the game. What if they have Legends outfits where, it's from the books that or like a Shadows of the Empire skin where, people like me that have that nostalgia to that stuff, it'd be like, oh my God, I want that skin. If it's like $5, people will throw that money at it. If it's like 20 or 25, I don't think people will throw money at it. So I think there's a lot of things that EA could do, and I just don't understand why they aren't doing it. Um, all right, into our last section here, talking about books and comics and stuff. We did get some comic book news. There were several comic books that were released throughout the month of June. There was one from the Dr. Aphra series. There's one for the High Republic, and then the mainline Star Wars series, like Star Wars number two, which is a story that follows Luke Skywalker's journey after Return of the Jedi. But the one that I am more interested in was that the Rise of Skywalker comics wrapped up. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, there have been comic book or graphic novel adaptions of the Star Wars films in the past, and of course they did it with Rise of Skywalker. Why would people want to be interested in that? Because usually literature, whether it's graphic novels or novelizations, where you get more of the film. And honestly, there's kind of a, I don't know if I'd call it controversial, but it's interesting the choice that they made for this comic book because the last issue came out and that we have that battle between Rey and Palpatine. And in the movie, Rey is like laying on the ground and she hears all the voices of the different Jedi calling her out or calling out her name and telling her to get up and, like kind of encouraging her to destroy the Emperor. And in the comic book, we actually get what we wanted from the movie, but it's not in the movie. So they like change it a little bit, right? We get this shot of Rey when she has the two lightsabers and she's pushing towards the Emperor's force lightning, and she has all the Jedi behind her that were, talking to her. And we all wanted that from the movie, but again, it's just one of those things where sometimes it's sad but like a Star Wars project will come out, they'll get their criticism, and they'll be like, you know what? That was a good idea. And then they throw it in something else. And it's like, well, why didn't you do that in the first place? Why couldn't you be as creative as the average Joe that's consuming your content? But um, part of me wants to read that series one of these days, the comic book adaptation or graphic novel. But again, you gotta have time. You gotta have time to do it. So
I do
I'm
think it's pretty neat that they figured out a way to make that work. And part of me wonders if they didn't do it in the film just for the sake of having all those extra. I feel like for that moment to be impactful, it would have to be Jedi that you recognize, and that means a lot of money. Either CGI for some of the weird species ones. I'm thinking of like the guy with the green tentacle hair and stuff. Like,
get Fist too.
yes, thank you. Like Yoda. Of course, there's other people like Qui-Gon who could have been there, but okay, then you're having to pay for Liam Neeson to be there for a day or two or however long, and that costs money too. I'm sure he ain't cheap.
Yeah, I did hear something like some interpretations of it, and people were saying like, you know, could we realistically expect all those actors and actresses to show up for a day to get this one shot? And that's why they just kind of went with the voiceovers, because then, people could either one casually just come into the sound studio and say Ray, into a microphone, or they could splice things from previous films because I think that's how they did episode 7 when Kenobi says Rey in her vision. They just took a thing that Alex Guinness, what was the line? I think he had said like, "Don't be afraid" to Luke in the film, and they cut it for when he said the word afraid and just got Rey out of it. And so, you can get different little things like that where they splice things out of previous material. So, That it was just the easier thing to do when it came for the film. But I mean, the comic book wasn't the only one that did that sort of a thing where they had other liberties of, and enhancing the film because the movie came out and then the novelization came out and the number one question that came out of the movie was how the heck did Palpatine come back? There's just this line that says somehow he's back. And the novelization clarifies how he came back. And so, it's one of those things that I know even some of our friends really hate this whole like backpedaling type thing where you have to read the book or read the graphic novel to get all of the information. Why can't we just sit and watch the movie and get it all? Which
Yeah,
is
when you say some of our
understandable.
friends, you mean me.
No, there's
I'm one
others.
of those.
There's others I can think of, but I totally get it. But at the same time, for me, it just gives me another reason to consume more Star Wars. So I'm always on the lookout for more content.
It makes me kind of infuriated that they take that approach when there's other things like the original trilogy where they did special edits to make things different or better, and some of it is justified. Like for example, uh putting Palpat or was it Jabba or Palpatine that they redid? I think it was Jabba.
They did
Um,
both
oh yeah, you're right.
because
So
Jabba was originally a human, and then they made him a creature. That's why
yeah,
Han Solo says to him, Jabba, you're a wonderful human being. And then, you know, now that he's a creature, it's kind of like, oh, that's a funny, sarcastic line. But originally, he was a human.
yeah. But okay, so we took these films, the original films, and we edited them. And I know we've done reviews before on, where the edit's good, where the edit's bad, and I'm just gonna say the reviews are mixed, right? Some of it was good and some of it was bad. Why aren't we doing that with any of these films? If we're gonna backpedal so hard on some of these stories, why are the films not being edited to make, the story better? There's some things, and I'm not saying like the all the people being behind Ray. I know there's some things that might not be super feasible, but there's other things that I feel like could be somewhat fairly simple, little one-liners or one scene or something that could be added in. My guess is they don't want to do it because it costs money, but at the same time, why did we do it in the first place with the originals? I don't know.
What I can tell you is this. They want you to pay more money so that you have to read the book.
That's not an acceptable answer.
I know it's not. It's a greedy answer, but it's what it is, unfortunately. The one thing I will say it's a double-edged sword here, and that is like for me, when I read Star Wars content, like if I pick up a novel and I read it, I want that novel to have something that adds something to Star Wars for me. And like for example, Shadows of the Empire. Love that book. It adds a lot of cool things to the Star Wars universe. There's also a recent one that came out. I forget the name of it, but it's the one that focuses on Luke and Lando's hunt for that like Sith assassin dude from Rise of Skywalker, and we also get to see quite a bit about the um, we get to see a lot of that Sith assassin. We also get to see more about the cult that was kind of manipulating things during that time. And we also, and this is the other big piece, we also get to learn more about Rey's parents, like the Emperor's son, and how they were on the run from, you know, Daddy, basically. And so, like that book added a lot to the lore. But there's also some books where it's just kind of like a Star Wars story and it doesn't really add a whole lot. And those are the ones that kind of frustrate me just because I want to learn stuff. I don't want to just basically uh, do a one shot and then nothing is really added to it. So they pull me in with that, saying, "Oh, we're sorry the movie wasn't as what you expected. Here's a little carrot for you to see more that you wanted, but yet it's at the expense of my wallet." So I just have to wait for like the library or something to have it to be checked out, so I don't have to pay for it. Or I could just read all the articles that people talk about it. That works too. All right. Is there anything else that we needed to cover for the month for Star Wars?
I think that covers it as far as I'm aware. If there's anything that we're missing, definitely drop it in the comments.
Yeah. So if you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Again, we do this once a month where we come together and talk about the different news that happened throughout the month of whatever. So this is the month of June's video, but we will have one for the month of July when we find out all the different news for next month. And to make sure that you are notified of that video is to turn on your notifications. Like Sarah said, drops a comment if there's something that we missed and you thought was worthwhile. Drops a like if you liked the video. And then, as always, everybody, thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.